There's this specific moment in Persona 5 Royal. You've just woken up, you've got your phone, wake up, get out there, kicks in, and within 30 seconds, you are fully committed to whatever this game is about to do to you. You don't even know what's happening yet, and you already feel something. I finished Persona 5 Royal, started another JRPG the next week, dropped it after 6 hours, started another one, same thing, couldn't do it. Not because those games were bad, some of them were genuinely great, but they weren't this. And that's the problem Persona 5 Royal creates. It doesn't just set a high bar, it rewires what you expect from the genre entirely. And once that happens, there's no going back. So let's actually talk about what Persona 5 Royal did, how it was made, and exactly why it broke every other JRPG for me permanently.
Katsura Hashino, that's the name you need to know. He directed Persona 3, he directed Persona 4, and then, in 2016, after years of development, he delivered Persona 5. The man has been at Atlus for decades. He also worked on Shin Megami Tensei titles and Catherine, but Persona 5 is his masterpiece. And then, in 2019, his team released Persona 5 Royal, the definitive version with an expanded story, a new character, a third semester, and so much polish added that the original feels almost like an early draft now. Here's what Hashino has said about his design philosophy, and this is the key to understanding why Persona 5 Royal works so differently from everything else. He described it like this: about 60 to 70% of the game should be familiar and easy to grasp, but 30 to 40% should be a complete unknown, something that grips and pulls the player into territory they've never been in before. That balance between comfort and the unfamiliar is the whole point. And the story's inspiration was deeply personal and deeply political. Hashino used the 2011 Tohoku earthquake as a reference point, not the disaster itself, but the public's reaction to it, how the media covered it, how people deferred to authority, how a society trained to respect hierarchy and stay in their lane processed a national catastrophe. He wanted to make a game about what happens when teenagers, the people with the least institutional power, decide they're done deferring, done letting the adults run things unchallenged. That's the Phantom Thieves. That's the whole game. It's not just a cool aesthetic, it's a political statement rooted in something real.
Most JRPGs separate these two things. You've got your story scenes, and you've got your dungeons and your combat, and they sit next to each other. Persona 5 Royal fused them completely. You play as Joker, a high school student who gets falsely accused of a crime and shipped off to Tokyo on probation. He has a criminal record he didn't earn. He's treated as a dangerous delinquent from day one. And the game builds its entire cast around that same idea. Every person who eventually becomes a Phantom Thief has been failed, dismissed, or destroyed by the adults around them. Ryuji had his track career ended by an abusive gym teacher. Anne was harassed and dismissed by the same teacher. Yusuke was exploited by his mentor. Every single person in your party is an outcast. And the palaces, the dungeons you explore, aren't random fantasy locations. Each one is literally the physical manifestation of a corrupt person's worldview. The abusive gym teacher's mind is a medieval castle where students are slaves. The cricket art dealer sees his whole world as a museum where everything is his property. You're not just fighting enemies, you're dismantling someone's psychology from the inside. Hashino said in an interview that he wanted the dungeons to feel like sequences from a Phantom Thief story, like Lupin, full of moments that feel cinematic and dangerous and unpredictable. And because every dungeon is handcrafted with its own identity, they don't feel like filler. They feel like chapters. In Hashino's own words, each character's personal issues should make the player want to understand them and help them. That's not a PR quote, that's the actual design brief. Build characters whose problems make you care.
Okay, so here's the mechanic that broke me the most when I tried to go back to other JRPGs. The Confidant system, which is Persona's version of social links, relationships you build with characters outside of the combat sections. You spend time with people, you have actual conversations, you make choices about how you respond to them, and the deeper those relationships get, the more powerful your combat abilities become. On paper, that sounds like a checklist. Hang out with NPC to unlock passive ability. That's every JRPG.
But here's what Persona 5 Royal does differently. Those characters have complete, fully written story arcs that are completely separate from the main plot. The politician with a checkered past who gives speeches nobody listens to. The journalist investigating corruption, even when it puts her in danger. The doctor running a black market clinic because the healthcare system failed the people he cares about. These people have lives. And because the game locks you into a specific school year, every decision you make costs time you can never get back. You have to actually choose which relationships to invest in. You cannot max everyone in one playthrough. That time pressure makes every hangout feel meaningful in a way that open-world RPGs where you can do everything can never replicate. Hashino said it directly. When we live our everyday lives, we're doing our own time management. Having that sort of system brings out a reality in games that we as people can resonate with. And he's right. The reason Persona 5 Royal side content hits harder than other JRPGs is because it's finite. You have until December. The clock is ticking. Every choice matters. That is just fundamentally different from a game that says, here are 200 hours of content, go nuts.
I cannot talk about this game without dedicating real time to Shoji Meguro and what he built here. The Persona series has always had distinctive music, but Persona 5 soundtrack isn't just good game music, it's a complete sonic identity. Meguro built the whole thing around jazz, funk, and rock, specifically the version of those genres that arrived in Japan from American bands in the 1960s and got filtered through Japanese culture into something completely unique. Vocalist Lin Inaizumi delivers all the vocal tracks in English, which creates this fascinating disconnect. Very Japanese game, very American musical influence somehow feels completely unified. And there's actual compositional architecture here that most people don't consciously notice. That ascending strings motif in Wake Up, Get Out There, the one that kicks the whole game off, shows up again in Last Surprise, the battle theme, shows up again in Life Will Change, the heist theme, shows up again in Rivers in the Desert, the final boss theme. It's the same musical phrase, representing determination and uprising, threaded through the entire game's most important moments. Life Will Change was voted the most popular song from a video game OST by Japanese fans. A battle theme from a JRPG won a fan poll. That doesn't happen with music that's just background noise. That happens when the music is genuinely inseparable from what you're feeling while you play. The moment Last Surprise kicks in your first random battle and you realize, oh, this is what battle music can be, that's a one-way door. Every silent or generic battle theme after it feels like a punishment.
Let's talk about what happened commercially, because the story here is actually incredible. Persona 5 Royal originally released in Japan in 2019 as a PlayStation 4 exclusive. In the West, in March 2020, right as COVID lockdown started happening globally, it landed and millions of people who suddenly had nothing to do played it obsessively. It was not a coincidence that the game about teenagers rebelling against oppressive adult systems hit differently during a period when the entire world felt like it had lost control. For years, it was PlayStation exclusive. Then, in October 2022, it finally came to PC, Xbox, and Switch. And Persona 5 Royal alone has now sold 7.25 million copies as of 2025, according to Sega Sammy's own financial report. The entire Persona 5 series, including spin-offs like Strikers and Tactica, has crossed 13 million copies. The whole Persona franchise has surpassed 23.5 million units. For a JRPG series that spent most of its existence as a PlayStation-only niche product, that's absolutely staggering growth. Persona 3 Reload came out in 2024 and sold 1 million copies in its first week because Persona 5 Royal had introduced a whole generation of new fans to what this series could be. Hashino himself moved on after Persona 5 to direct Metaphor ReFantasio, which came out in 2024 and won Game of the Year at multiple outlets. The man just keeps raising his own bar.
So why does it specifically ruin other JRPGs? It's not that Persona 5 Royal is the only great JRPG. Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Tales, these series have brilliant games. It's not about quality, it's about integration. Persona 5 Royal built a game where the aesthetics, the music, the combat, the story, the social mechanics, and the themes are all pulling in exactly the same direction at exactly the same time. The red and black visual identity isn't just cool, it is the rebellion theme. The jazz soundtrack isn't just background, it is Tokyo nightlife and the feeling of doing something secret and dangerous. The time management system isn't just a gameplay mechanic, it is the feeling of being a teenager with too much to do and not enough hours. When every single component of a game is serving the same idea, playing something where those things are disconnected feels like watching a movie where the score doesn't match the visuals. You notice the gap. You feel it. Hashino described wanting 30 to 40% of the experience to be an unknown that grips people. Persona 5 Royal delivered on that for the entire game. And once you felt what it's like when a JRPG operates at that level of cohesion, anything less feels like something is missing, even in games that are objectively excellent.
I'm not saying don't play other JRPGs. Play them. Some are incredible. But just know, if Persona 5 Royal is the first one you play or the one you played after a long time away from the genre, it will recalibrate your standards in a way that you can't undo. Wake up, get out there. That song is right about one thing. There is more to life than their way. What JRPG do you think actually comes close? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if you're going down the rabbit hole, God of War, Elden Ring, Witcher 3, the deep dives are all right here. See you there.